Hello, everybody. I wanted to welcome you back to Medicine with a Mission, Faith, Family, and the Profession podcast. My name is Paul Waller. I'm the president of the Christian Sports Medicine Alliance, and we are now at episode 19 in total for this podcast. And this is day, let me see what day it is. This will be day 14 of National Athletic Training Month. So we have a very special guest, as always. All of them are very special, but this one is probably more so because he and I have known each other for probably 20 years-ish.
I was counting it up. I think it's closer to 20, almost 25.
Yeah, probably 25, yeah. So we go back a long way, we'll just put you that way. I think it was back when my first high school in Tyler, Texas, when I had to go to Abilene for a playoff game or something. I don't remember what we were doing. But DJ, how you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Sounds like we're looking like we're both doing our interviews from the house.
Yeah. No, nice Sunday or Saturday afternoon at the house, and
yes,
we're gonna try to get out and do some things this afternoon before the storms hit. We're supposed to have some storms, so
yeah, I think we'll get what you're getting
tomorrow.
Yeah, late tonight, tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
So, well, DJ, tell me, like I said, you and I probably go back, at least 20 years. We probably think more than 25.
Yeah.
Where have you been? I track you all the time. Where have you've been in a lot of different places? Where did it start for you, and where are you at now?
It started, I was part of the old internship route program at Hardin-Simmons, in Abilene, Texas, little Division III school. When I started there, they were NAIA, but started out there, had an athletic training scholarship that, I was hoping to go other places, but ended up, being able to get to Hardin-Simmons. I spent 5 years there. I had to take a victory lap, but that's okay. It helped me to grow as an individual. And then from there, I took a graduate assistant position at Northwest Missouri State in Maryville, Missouri, and spent 2 years there, finished my graduate degree. I tell everybody that was when they started the dynasty with Bearcat football and Division II dominance. Everybody's like, well, what's so special about Northwest? I'm like, well, they're the Alabama of Division II. And so we won 2 national championships up there when I was a GA primary GA for baseball for 2 years. And then I did baseball and I was a primary GA for football in my second year there as well. And then after that, my first job, I was the first head athletic trainer and clinical director of sports medicine at Missouri Baptist College in St. Louis. It's Missouri Baptist University now. But I was the first full-time. That was 21 years ago. And they had been contracting athletic trainers locally, and they decided to hire someone full-time with the sole intent of creating a KD or at that time a KHEP accredited program. And so I started, working towards, establishing the curriculum there and working towards, moving that program into an accredited program. I went to my very first ATEC meeting in Dallas or Fort Worth. I guess it was maybe 01. Yeah, it was 01. And I took all that I learned. I went back and I met with the provost and the president and reported back all my findings. And they said, well, I don't know that this is really the direction we want to go. And I was like, oh no, this is not the direction I want to go. This is why I'm here. I spent another year there, and I always thought that I'd go back to Hardin-Simmons at some point, but I didn't really think it was going to be so early in my career. But an opportunity to return to Hardin-Simmons 4 years after I graduated presented itself, and it really was a good time. My dad's health was in bad shape, and he had been diagnosed with MS when I was in high school, and it was an opportunity for me to be 4.5 hours from home versus 11.5 hours from home. And so took advantage of that opportunity back to Hardin-Simmons. I served as an assistant, a dual position role. I was faculty and staff, and so I taught we were pursuing KHEP accreditation, and that was my first experience with a self-study. We got accredited in '04. That same year in 2004, I was named interim head athletic trainer as David Stuckey moved into the department chair role. And I was hired in the spring, I was named interim in '05. I was hired as the head athletic trainer in '06. And I spent from '06 to 13 as the head athletic trainer at Hardin-Simmons. I started working on my doctorate at Texas A&M. During the midst of that, I'd always wanted to be a Fighting Texas Aggie, and I ended up graduating as one of the proudest members of the Fighting Texas Aggie class of 2012. Whoop! And so it was fun. It was great to get a degree from A&M, and that opened up an opportunity for me to move into the clin ed coordinator position at Hardin-Simmons. Unfortunately, there were some things at Hardin-Simmons that were happening, and there were some major cuts and financial strains, and we prayed about some opportunities to present itself. I had just completed my doctorate, and it looked like things at Hardin-Simmons were going south. And unfortunately, they've cut a lot of programs here in the last 7 years, and so we were praying about some opportunities. And I'll never forget, I was laying down with our daughter, and we had a bad faculty meeting earlier that day, and they were telling us about budget cuts and stuff. And I just remember praying that night, asking God, you know what our needs are, please just guide and direct us. And that night, the NATA sends out career center stuff like at midnight or something. And that night I just happened to be still awake, and a position open at Samford University for a clinical or director of clinical education for their new graduate program. And so it was, something I was like, well, golly, I've always heard of Samford, and they have a great reputation. And so I decided I was just going to throw my name in. The next thing I know, we're moving to Birmingham, Alabama. And that was my first. I finished my doctorate, and we moved to Alabama. I graduated 2 weeks after we moved, and then started out. Initially, I was the undergraduate program director because they decided to push back their graduate degree by a year, and then they 2 months into my job, they came in and said, "Hey, we're going to start the grad program up next summer. Are you still interested in maybe transitioning?" And knowing the trajectory of athletic training education, I said, "Yeah, sure. I'd love that opportunity." So I transitioned over to the director of clin ed and helped them get their athletic training program up and running. At that time, that was my third self-study that I got to be a part of. And then we weren't looking to leave at all. We were happy as could be there in Birmingham. And as always, I keep up with what's going on job placement wise for our students. And when we were moving to Alabama, my wife said, how long do you think we're going to be here? And I was like, well, we're going to be at least 7 years, because that's how long it takes you to normally get tenure and, establish yourself. And then, you're usually set by that point, and you stick around in the academic world. And Andrea said, well, where would we move if we didn't stay here? Like, the only way we're moving back to Texas is if A&M has a faculty job come open, or if Texas Tech has a faculty job that comes open. Those are the places I'd really like to, continue my career. And lo and behold, the end of October, I was just, searching for some GA positions and some other options for our students. And I saw a position that opened at Tech. And I had interviewed for a faculty position here as I was working on my doctorate, and it just wasn't the right timing. And so I ended up applying, just seeing how things went. And the next thing I know is we're moving to Lubbock, Texas, and I'm the clinical education coordinator now at the Health Sciences Center at Texas Tech University Health Sciences Center for the athletic training program. And like we were talking beforehand, a lot of people don't know that we're two separate universities. The Health Science Center itself split off became its own university. Probably, I'm going to get my years mixed up, within the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Then they were actually attached to main campus, which is, just across the street from it. But we've been here now 3 years. Love it. It's a great opportunity for, my family, and everybody asks me, is it hard to, being an Aggie here? No, not hard at all. There's Aggies all over the place, but
Yeah.
it's fun. We're not in the same conference, so I got a house divided flag in my office. It has Tech on one half and A&M on the other half, and so it's fun being here. I have a great relationship with our preceptors across the street, and enjoy being with them and helping them out whenever they need it. That's kind of my story, how I got to where I am now, 23 years later, I guess.
Yeah. What's really cool about that is that, and you and I have talked, when we see each other at our district meeting and so forth, and you've been to 1, 2, 3, 4 different places? 3.
Yeah.
4.
No, this is my fourth.
This is your fourth. Okay. Is that there's a pretty common, not pretty common, there is a common thread with you throughout this whole journey of 23 years, is that it seems to be that it's always been your relationship with Christ first, and then whatever he then your profession second. And I believe that, I think that you epitomize the scripture in Matthew where it says, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God first, and then all these other things will be added unto you." So I can imagine how many different people that you have over the last 23 years at your positions, how many different people you have come in contact with, you've been able to develop relationships with, and how you have seen your relationship with Christ grow, and it's actually been manifested out in the workplace at all these different places, and into the lives of those individuals that you come in contact with, and especially those faculty members that you deal with every single day. Because some of them may not know Jesus, and some of them may know him personally, but I believe that you have such a strong relationship with Christ that regardless of where they are, they know where you are, and that relationship is solid.
Yeah, I love people. I really do. I love loving on folk and serving people. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned since I got married, is just how much I love to serve, and be a part. People ask me all the time, do I miss athletics? And the answer to that question is 100%. I miss athletics. It's a different type of environment, and part of it's just the relationships that we get to build. Early on, I've always been real actively involved, with young adults, and even though I'm approaching AARP age, looking forward to those discounts, by the way.
Yeah.
Even though I'm getting a year each year closer to that, I still feel like, I'm still a young kid at heart. And so, early in my career, I helped sponsor, different organizations on campus, student organizations, and, walked alongside of them outside of athletics and outside of, the classroom. And I really got involved. I'm a firm believer in the local church, and I really believe the local church is important. And that didn't come naturally for me at first, because I was kind of hesitant, I didn't become a believer until I was a sophomore in college, 1995, almost, well, no, maybe I was a junior year. I can't remember. But that's when I became a believer. And so a lot of things were still kind of real new to me. I'd been hurt by the church growing up. I have a hereditary bone disease, osteogenesis imperfecta. And so I spent a lot of time, from the time I was in the 6th grade until I was a junior in high school, breaking bones and, being in a wheelchair or wearing braces. if you look at it, I've only been walking without any type of assisted device since 1992. And so I'm just now 30 years old with my calluses on my feet, and I look back at all of those times, and when I started getting involved with the local church and just healing from the fact that I felt like I had been hurt so much as a kid, and started really seeing, Bible-centered preaching and Christ-centered preaching, gospel-centered preaching, and being a part of that, I just wanted to be more involved. And so I got involved with college ministry, and I led a couple of, I've been involved with young adult or college ministry for the past 20 years. And one of the things that, God has taught me the most about is those relationships, and those relationships are so important. And I've seen God do some pretty amazing things just by taking time to sit down and invest in, hey, how's your day going?
Mhm.
Like you said, whether they're a believer or not, it's we're called. I mean, hello, we're called to serve. We're called to love our neighbor. And my neighbor's not going to look like me. My neighbor's not going to act like me. My neighbor's going to be different, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm called to love my neighbor. And
Mhm.
that's something that I've really grown a lot in over the last 25 years, and becoming, stronger in how do I serve those in need? How do I serve the least of these? And that's one of the most important things that, I try to even teach our students. Athletic training is a service profession. Healthcare in itself is service. And how can we serve our patient populations in a way that's going to help them become the very best version of them that they're supposed to be? And that's something that I think that God has really called me to do, is just to serve others. And
Mhm.
that's what I like doing. I love doing that. How can I help you is something I love to say.
Let's see, this is like episode 19, so that's 19 recordings, and every single person has brought up it seems like it's the same theme that, and I've always believed this, and I totally believe this, is that our profession is based on relationships.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just amazing how many, it's 19 different people from 19 different parts of the country, and we all have said the same thing, that our profession is based on relationships. And I think, to me, this is my opinion, that it may be easier for me, because Christ lives in me,
Absolutely.
to develop those relationships.
Yeah.
Because I mean, my relationship with him should be should be should be uh, should be an easy transfer over, and having to build a relationship with someone else.
Absolutely. You know, like you said earlier, a lot of time I don't go around proselytizing. I let my relationships be built. Um, and if you're my friend on social media, you're gonna see what's important to me by what's posted. And so a friend and colleague, Dr. Keisha Harrell from Miami, she did a TED talk that's fantastic. It was not a TED talk; it's a Cane talk. They did it at the University of Miami. It's called Cane Talks.
Mhm.
She, she specifically said that about athletic training is
Mhm.
a relationship centered healthcare profession.
Yep.
And I love listening to her talk. I love listening, the things that she has to say. And she's absolutely right. Everything that we do from a patient-centered perspective, or a patient perspective, but also from a team perspective, and from our relationships with our parents,
Mm-hmm.
we build those relationships like no other. You look at, my wife will say, "Who's that on Facebook? Who are you talking to?" "Oh, that's a parent of one of my former football players or soccer players." We developed those relationships with them over time because of, unforeseen circumstances that come up in their careers. One of my closest one of my closest friends in the entire world, um, is he is probably 10 years younger than I am. He was a football player at Hardin Simmons that ended up having, he was in my men's college men's Bible study that I hosted. And half of that, when we started that, a lot of them were seekers. And he started coming, and he ended up having a really bad neck injury that ended up ending his career. And having, he's had a couple of surgeries, and, he's a fantastic father. He's a triathlete as well, and but he became one of my best friends, even to
Mhm.
this day. He and his wife got married 6 months after my wife and I got married. Our daughter and their middle daughter are the same age, and we went to church together. They moved, they got married, and they came back. And when they moved back to Abilene, hey, where are you going to church? And we were in the same Sunday school, young, married class together and everything. And it all started because he got hurt. And that guy has sharpened me more than just about any other man in my life, and it all started with him just seeking, and never in my wildest dream, I never thought that anybody would ever, I just never thought that God could use me, honestly.
Without, we're talking earlier about, and again, it goes back to the relationship aspect of what we do as athletic trainers. You had made mention that you have a student at your school that is of a different faith, that um, that you meet with, and he knows where you believe, what you believe, and you know what he believes.
Yeah.
There's some similarities to some degree of what we believe, what you two believe, and what we believe in, but there's one specific obvious difference. How did that, I mean, that's a very unique relationship, because, I
Yeah.
mean, you teach him. I mean, he's coming for you for guidance in academics.
Yeah.
That's a God thing to me.
He's great. I love it. We have, he is, we challenge each other,
Mm,
and we absolutely challenge each other. He challenges me to be stronger in my faith. And I think I challenge him to continue to ask questions about things.
absolutely.
And I mean, when we get together, we do it. We do it off campus. We meet together,
Hmm.
um, and it's because he's asked, you know.
Yeah,
But it all started with me just, taking an interest in who he was as an individual.
right.
You know, I mean, he's a remarkable individual, and
Hmm.
I think he's got great things ahead of him. And I think that that he's going to be a superb athletic trainer. But
Hmm.
he loves relationships as well. And we were talking the other day. He said he said something, and I said, this is, we were supposed to have this conversation. This has been something. He goes, I feel the same way. We were supposed to have this conversation. So like, we were always supposed to meet. We're always supposed to be, and he likes to travel a lot. And when he travels, he's very philosophical, and he'll send me pictures, and he'll send me, this big old long, reflection of what he,
Hmm.
and he said, I can absolutely see the hand of God in all of this.
Mm.
It's really neat. I mean, it really is neat.
Hmm.
He's a great guy. And he graduates this year, but I know that's not, I never say goodbye. It's just see you later.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll have the opportunity to see him later. So yeah.
And you were also mentioning, which I don't think we would probably think of this happening too often, especially at a state school. Um, you had made mention that there's been on several occasions within the UT, oh my gosh,
Don't say that.
with the Texas Tech Health Science Center in school, that y'all have had, you've had faculty meetings on, how did you put it? You've had faculty meetings on,
They're professional. We have I'm in the School of Health Professions, and we have professional development meetings usually once a week. They're usually Friday. They're lunch and learns, if you will. And I got to text my wife to get the dog. Hang on. Let me let the dog in real quick.
yep. This, my friends, is what you call on the fly.
Sorry about that.
You're fine.
They're basically lunch and learns. And you know, faith and culture and cultural competency is a big, I mean, it's a standard for our education program, but also for other programs as well. And when you look at healthcare as a whole, that's faith takes a big role in a lot of people,
Mm-hmm.
and it looks different for every religion and culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have had several, I think just this year we've had 2 or 3 that have been focused and centered around faith and culture. And they've been fantastic. We've had talks on, from a faith perspective, what is legal? Can you legally say in a classroom? What can you legally say in a clinical setting? And it's not as restrictive as you would think.
Right.
And
I think there's a lot of people that don't realize that there's probably more than you can say than you really believe.
that was the thing that really surprised me. Most of my career, I've been at a faith-based institution with the exception of grad school and my current, place of employment. And so it never really, crossed my mind, that some of the things that I was afraid and other believers were afraid, it's actually legal. We had a professor from across the street at main campus who is a professor of, I don't know, he's in the law school, but I can't remember. His specialty is specifically, I think it's religious freedom. And he just outlined it all for us. And it was a fantastic, because our faculty is made up of, people of a lot of different faiths and backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And learning from each other has been really, really instrumental in my growth. But it also has been very instrumental in their growth as well. And when we all heard the same thing, it was refreshing. We have, I work with, several believers and several non-believers and several, of different faiths. And we all focus again on that relationship and building those relationships.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I just, again, I think that, and I tell people this quite often especially when I'm talking about like our international mission work that we do, even domestically, but a lot of the countries we go into, is that, there's some, we don't go in and we don't go and hold, evangelistic rallies and stuff like that. Our whole purpose going is to educate, equip them with education and the content they need to provide them better healthcare. And in doing so, we're hope and pray that we're going to be able to develop those relationships with them to share our faith. It's all based on relationships.
Absolutely.
The Christian life is based on relationships. Athletic training is based on relationships. Healthcare is based on relationships, like you were saying. And I think it's a lot easier for us when we have those, when we're able to develop those relationships with our students, our athletes, our faculty, our parents, that we're praying that hopefully down somewhere in the conversation that we can maybe share the gospel with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about planting those seeds,
Yes.
and it's not my job.
Yeah.
It's my job is to reflect Christ and as
Mm-hmm.
best I can every single day. And
Mm-hmm.
Paul, I'm the first to tell you that I don't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
there are days that I struggle. I mean, I was, I've had my own mental health problems. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I have had anger issues, so much so that you know, I've had anger management.
Mm-hmm.
Early in my career, early in my, um, in my career, just because that was something that was noticed. And I've had to battle through a lot of, you know, personal personal attacks. You know, it's everybody thinks sometimes, being a Christian is, this humdrum. I made a profession of faith. I've said the prayer. I've done all this and that, but there's so much more to that. It's not that it just you've had this transformation, that when you have that transformation and that reconciliation, and you really surrender your life, all the attacks, that's when the attacks start.
Yes. A lot of people think it's easy. It's
Do
actually,
it. Yeah.
a lot of people think it's really easy, but it's actually one of the hardest things that you'll ever do.
I mean, it is because, um, you know, being a father, then,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's hard, and I think, when my daughter, as sweet and as loving and as beautiful and as caring as she is, when she doesn't do something that, how upset that I get, and it's over, like spilled milk or something,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, whatever the case may be, and I feel like I see a glimpse of what, our Heavenly Father, whenever we sin.
Mm-hmm.
And on the flip side of it, being the, a proud pet owner of a 75 or a 60-pound golden retriever, that as soon as you walk in the door, it's like the first thing they see is you, and they love you unconditionally. Oh, I forgot to feed you this morning. You walk in, he's not mad at you.
Yeah.
He's happy that you're home.
Yeah.
And, and then you put food in his cup, and he's more happy to be with you than he
Mm-hmm.
is to be with the food that you provide.
Right.
And that's Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and Jesus is the relationship to the Father. And
Mm-hmm.
the more that he wants to fellowship with us more than anything. And the more that we can invest in our fellowship with him is going to increase our relationship with the Father.
Absolutely.
Even though I continue to fail and fail and fail, Jesus is still there, just like Rudder,
Mm-hmm.
wanting to love me, wanting to hold me, wanting
Mm-hmm.
to, give me hugs and kisses and everything else. That's it reminds me of it's coming up on Easter. Uh, what's that pastor's name? That's my Jesus, or that's my King. H.M. Lockridge,
Yeah.
powerful, powerful preacher of the word. And to me, when we should probably think of that sermon that he gives, the Easter sermon, we should probably think of it every day, because we
Mm-hmm.
need that reminder every day that that's my King.
Mm-hmm.
That's my King every day. And man, it goes back to those relationships. I love the picture of Christ throughout the gospel, who he called friends, and who he called confidants, and who he loved on the people. When you're raising a child and you're trying to do it from a gospel centered perspective, you see the gospel in a different way. And I've always been a fan of Paul, but seeing it from a children's perspective to, an adult's perspective has really opened my eyes, because there's I didn't have this type of children's literature when I was a kid, but there's some really cool stuff out there that show Paul as he truly was. We
Mm-hmm.
just saw Paul in Sunday school was, well, Paul didn't like Jesus, and then all of a sudden he liked, oh, no, no. I mean, Superbook makes it perfectly clear.
Yeah.
Superbook makes it perfectly clear. Paul was killing people. He was hunting them down. He was killing Christians. And then all of a sudden he has this encounter on the road to Damascus and forever changed the course of Christianity because he surrendered his life and her relationships that he built. He created the discipleship model. He created, the mentorship model that we all want to, whether we think about it or not. That's what we have somebody above us. In Timothy's case, it was Paul. And in Paul's case, it was Jesus.
Yep.
And then we have somebody below us. And in Paul's case, it was Timothy. And then Timothy, who did Timothy? And and that's why I just love relationships. Not everybody I'm in contact with is going to hear the story of Christ, but I hope that they see Christ through me.
Yes.
And how I treat them. And I don't, I've made mistakes, I'm a fallen person and I still have to, repent on an hourly basis. But I hope, by the way, that I've treated people and the way that I have shared, my life with them, and to try to serve them, that somehow, some way they see the image of Jesus within me.
Absolutely. Amen. Well, hey, before we let you go, what is that verse or verses, like I ask everybody else, that would be your foundation verse, your life verse?
So like I said, I came to know Christ and my personal relationship with him at TBRM Sports Camp during college advance with FCA back in the mid 90s. And I swear it was Bodie Baucham. I swear it was. I don't know if it was for sure, but I'm pretty sure it was Bodie Baucham. Because at that time in the mid 90s, he was doing a bunch of FCA stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, I went in reluctant. I didn't want to go. In fact, I found a picture of all of us from Hardin Simmons that went, and everybody's smiling in the picture except for me. And it was the first day. And I'm looking at the picture like, I don't want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
But I went, and that weekend, the opening preached out of the book of James. And when he read James 1-4, it was like he was like reading directly to me. And James 1-4, kind of all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And we've got to let steadfastness have its full effect, that we may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. And so he spent Friday night and Saturday morning talking about counting it joy from various kinds, or from the trial, being tested of our, when we go through trials, that we need to be happy and be counted joyful. And I had a hard time with that, knowing what I experienced as a kid growing up in small town West Texas with a bone disease, and the type of, looking back on it, I realized that was discrimination, against my disability.
Mm-hmm.
Being told you can't ride a bus because we don't have, a wheelchair lift. There was no buses that had wheelchair lifts. My parents had to take us places. I had people that, don't touch him, he'll break. I contemplated hurting myself. I contemplated suicide as a teenager. And all through that time, I just felt like there was no such thing as God. I had grown up going to church, but again, I felt hurt by that church. But now he's telling us to count it all joy. And then on Saturday afternoon and Saturday night, he brings it in, with verse 12. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial, for when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which is God has promised us to those who have loved him, and that's through Jesus Christ. And for the first time in my life, it was like, I'm pretty sure I said quote unquote fire insurance prayers at every single FCA thing I ever went to, or every single church thing I went to my junior and senior year in high school, but it wasn't until February 25th, 1995 that I saw the gospel for what it really was. Saw that everything that I'd gone through in my life was that I had done that because God was going to use me over the next 20 years or plus. Hopefully I have 20 more years and plus.
Yeah.
but I had to surrender, and I had to realize that, you know, I am worthy of being loved. I am worthy of having a relationship with my Lord and Savior, and that I'm not broken,
Mhm.
that I have been redeemed. And that's that right now, Big Daddy Weave, Redeemed is my absolute favorite song right now. And I know it's an older song, but whenever I start working out, that's the very first song that I listen to. Everybody always gives me a hard time if they see me working out. They're like, "What are you listening to?" I'm like, "You wouldn't understand." And they're like, and they get rattling off all these, heavy metal, rah, rah, stuff. And I like to work out to praise and worship music. And I'm not talking like, I'm talking about low and slow, and just that's a good time for me to be in the presence. And so
Mm-hmm.
the James is the book. It's not any, I mean, we could sit and talk about James all day.
All
Love
day
James.
long.
Yeah.
Tough. It's a tough book, but it's a good one. It's a
Yeah.
good. You could unpack that for years, and I cover it all.
Yeah.
DJ, I appreciate you very, very much, man. I appreciate our friendship over the years. I appreciate your witness. I appreciate your faith. You have a beautiful wife and a great-looking young daughter that's you're just loving every day.
I'm gonna have to find something, because she's like talking about boys already.
Yeah, no, we don't need to go there. But again, I really appreciate you being on with us and sharing from the heart and being so transparent. And if you are interested in learning more about Christian Sports Medicine Alliance and what our mission is, which is to make God known in and through our profession by educating, equipping, and serving, please go to our website at christiansportsmed.org. If you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do that also at tweetcsma. And if you're a Christian athletic trainer and you're looking for a place that you can do life and share your thoughts, your heart, your greatest, your whatever God's doing in your life, makes no difference. Go to Facebook. It's called Beyond the ATR. It's a great place to go and just to hang out with other athletic trainers from across the country and really across the world. So until next time, DJ, again, I really appreciate you and thank you for coming on with us.
Thanks, Paul. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Have a good remainder of National Athletic Training Month, man.
We'll do. Thanks so much for having me.
You too. Bye now.